The wind howled across the barren plains of Novaterra, carrying with it the faint scent of metallic dust that lingered in the air. Dr. Leo Hartman sat hunched over his desk inside the dimly lit research lab, surrounded by scattered papers, glowing monitors, and half-empty coffee mugs. His tired eyes scanned through rows of data displayed on one of the screens, a project he had been working on for weeks without much progress. Outside, the twin moons cast an eerie blue glow over the desolate landscape, their light filtering weakly through the reinforced glass windows. Leo sighed and leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. He was alone tonight, just like most nights. The colony scientists often joked about how his dedication bordered on obsession, but Leo didn't mind. Solitude suited him. It always had. Besides, there wasn't much else to do out here on this remote outpost. Novaterra wasn't exactly known for its nightlife or social scene. Just as he reached for another cup of cold coffee, a sharp knock echoed through the room. Startled, Leo turned toward the door. Visitors were rare this late into the night, especially unannounced ones. "Who is it?" he called out cautiously, rising from his seat. There was no immediate response, only silence. For a moment, Leo wondered if he imagined the sound altogether. But then came another knock, firmer this time, almost urgent. Frowning, he grabbed a small handheld scanner from his desk before approaching the entrance. With a flick of a button, the heavy metal door slid open, revealing her. Standing in the doorway was a young woman unlike anyone Leo had ever seen. Her skin shimmered faintly, as though brushed with liquid starlight, shifting colors with every subtle movement. Her hair cascaded down her shoulders in waves of silver and gold, catching the moonlight even in the dimness. But what truly captivated him were her eyes. They weren't human. They glowed softly, filled with swirling patterns resembling galaxies stretching endlessly into infinity. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Leo stood frozen, unsure whether to feel awe or alarm. Finally, she broke the silence. "Do you remember me?" she asked, her voice melodic yet tinged with sadness. "We were in the same class." Leo blinked, taken aback. "Class? What are you talking about?" She tilted her head slightly, studying him as though searching for something familiar in his expression. "High school," she continued. "Back on Earth. It was a long time ago." Leo frowned, trying to place her face among the faded memories of his teenage years. High school had been a blur. Endless lectures, awkward friendships, and the occasional crush he'd never acted on. He couldn't recall anyone who looked remotely like her. "I'm sorry," he said slowly, "but I don't think we've met before." Her lips curved into a faint smile, though it didn't reach her luminous eyes. "That's okay. You weren't supposed to remember." She extended her hand, holding out a small crystalline object roughly the size of a walnut. It pulsed gently, emitting a soft, rhythmic hum that seemed to resonate deep within Leo's chest. "This will help." Leo hesitated, eyeing the crystal warily. "What is that?" "It's yours," she replied simply. "Or rather, it belongs to both of us. Take it." Something about her tone made him hesitate less. Against his better judgment, he reached out and took the crystal. As soon as his fingers brushed against its surface, a jolt of energy shot up his arm, making him gasp. Visions flickered briefly in his mind, blurry images of classrooms, lockers slamming shut, laughter echoing down empty hallways. But they vanished as quickly as they appeared. "Wait," Leo stammered, looking up. "Who are you?" Before he could say anything more, she stepped back, her form already beginning to fade into the shadows. "My name is Alara," she said softly. "And I'll see you again soon." With that, she turned and disappeared into the darkness, leaving Leo standing there, clutching the crystal and struggling to make sense of what had just happened. The wind picked up again, whistling mournfully around the edges of the building, but there was no sign of her anywhere. Closing the door, Leo returned to his desk, still gripping the crystal tightly. Its gentle hum persisted, thrumming steadily in his palm. He stared at it, feeling a mix of curiosity and unease. Whatever Alara wanted from him, it was clear that nothing about this encounter was ordinary, and despite his logical mind screaming at him to dismiss it all as some bizarre prank, or perhaps even a hallucination brought on by exhaustion, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. As the hours ticked by, Leo found himself unable to focus on his work. Instead, his thoughts kept circling back to Alara and the strange device now resting on his desk. Who, or what, was she? Why did she claim they knew each other? And most importantly, why had she given him this crystal? Whatever answers lay ahead, Leo sensed they wouldn't come easily. But one thing was certain, life on Novaterra was about to get a lot more complicated. The next morning, Leo woke up to the faint hum of the crystal still resting on his desk. He had barely slept, his mind racing with questions about Alara and the mysterious object she'd left behind. The lab was quiet except for the soft whirring of machines and the occasional beep from his monitors. Outside, the twin moons had set, leaving the sky painted in shades of orange as the sun began its slow ascent over Novaterra's horizon. Leo picked up the crystal again, hesitating for a moment before holding it closer to examine it. Its surface was smooth and cool to the touch, yet it pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. As he turned it over in his hands, something strange happened. The hum grew louder, resonating through his fingertips and spreading into his chest. Suddenly, flashes of light erupted in his vision, forcing him to close his eyes. When he opened them again, he wasn't in the lab anymore. Instead, he found himself standing in what looked like an old classroom. Desks were arranged neatly in rows, chalk dust lingered in the air, and a faded poster of the periodic table hung crookedly on the wall. It felt familiar, though not entirely real, like watching a memory play out on a screen rather than experiencing it firsthand. A younger version of himself sat at one of the desks near the back, scribbling absent-mindedly in a notebook while ignoring the teacher droning on about quadratic equations. But then Leo noticed someone else, a girl sitting alone by the window. She wore a plain gray sweater that seemed too big for her slight frame, and her head was bowed low over a sketchpad. Even without seeing her face clearly, Leo recognized her instantly. It was Alara, or at least it looked like her. Her hair wasn't shimmering silver now, but a dull brown, and her skin didn't glow with otherworldly light. Still, there was something unmistakable about her presence, the way she hunched slightly forward, completely absorbed in whatever she was drawing. Curiosity tugged at Leo, urging him to move closer, but before he could take a step, the scene shifted abruptly. Now he was standing under the bleachers behind the school gymnasium. The air smelled damp and metallic, and distant cheers from a basketball game echoed above them. Younger Leo stood awkwardly next to Alara, or whoever she was supposed to be, who held a crumpled piece of paper in her trembling hands. "You don't have to tell anyone," she whispered urgently, glancing around nervously. "Please." Young Leo frowned, looking confused. "Tell anyone what?" She hesitated, then unfolded the paper, revealing a series of intricate symbols that made no sense to him. They weren't letters or numbers. They looked more like geometric patterns, swirling and intersecting in ways that defied logic. "These are important," she said softly. "They're part of something bigger, something you won't understand yet." Before Leo could respond, or even process what she meant, the memory dissolved into static, pulling him back to reality. He blinked rapidly, finding himself once again seated at his desk in the lab. His heart pounded wildly, and cold sweat trickled down his neck. What had just happened? Was it really a memory, or some kind of hallucination triggered by the crystal? Determined to find answers, Leo decided to test the crystal further. He placed it carefully on a scanning platform connected to his computer system. The machine whirred to life, analyzing the object's composition and energy signature. To his surprise, the readings were unlike anything he'd ever encountered. The crystal emitted frequencies outside the known electromagnetic spectrum, and its molecular structure appeared to shift constantly, as if it existed in multiple states simultaneously. As the scan progressed, fragments of data began appearing on his screen, snippets of text, mathematical formulas, and diagrams resembling star charts. Some of the symbols matched those Alara had shown him in the memory, while others were entirely new. Leo scrolled through the information, his brow furrowing deeper with each passing second. None of it made complete sense, but one thing became clear. These weren't ordinary doodles or random sketches. They were advanced calculations describing concepts far beyond human understanding. Impossible, Leo muttered under his breath, leaning closer to the monitor. One particular sequence caught his attention, a complex equation detailing the manipulation of spacetime itself. If accurate, it suggested the existence of technology capable of bending reality. And yet, such knowledge shouldn't exist. Not here, not now. His thoughts were interrupted when his assistant, Mia Chen, walked into the lab carrying a tray of fresh coffee. She stopped short upon seeing the intensity in Leo's expression. "Everything okay?" she asked cautiously. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Leo hesitated, unsure how much to share. Mia was brilliant and trustworthy, but this was unlike anything either of them had dealt with before. Finally, he gestured toward the crystal and the scattered data on the screen. "Take a look at this," he said simply. Mia set the tray down and approached the workstation, her eyes widening as she scanned the information. "Where did you get this?" she asked after a long pause. "I'm not sure I should say," Leo admitted reluctantly, "but suffice it to say, it's complicated." Mia crossed her arms, giving him a skeptical look. "Complicated doesn't begin to cover it. This is groundbreaking stuff, if we can verify it. Do you realize what this could mean for our research?" Leo nodded, though his excitement was tempered by unease. There was something unsettling about the crystal, something he couldn't quite put into words. Every time he used it, he felt as though it was probing his mind, sifting through layers of memories he hadn't accessed in years. Worse still, the images it conjured weren't consistent. Sometimes they felt genuine, like actual recollections. Other times, they seemed distorted, almost artificial, as if someone had implanted them deliberately. Later that evening, after Maya left to analyze the data further, Leo decided to dig deeper into his own past. Using the colony's secure network, he accessed archived records from his high school days. At first glance, everything appeared normal. Class rosters, yearbook photos, transcripts. But when he searched specifically for Alara, there was no trace of her. No name matching hers appeared anywhere in the database. Not in his grade level, not in any extracurricular activities, not even in casual mentions by teachers or staff. Puzzled, Leo expanded his search parameters, combing through local news articles and government reports from that era. That's when he stumbled across something unusual, a classified document dated several decades ago, referencing unauthorized experiments conducted near his hometown. The details were heavily redacted, but one phrase stood out: potential extraterrestrial contact. Leo stared at the screen, his pulse quickening. Could it be possible? Had Alara been involved in those experiments somehow? And if so, why had she chosen him to deliver the crystal? The implications were staggering, bordering on incomprehensible. Yet deep down, Leo knew one thing for certain. Alara wasn't human. Whatever she was, and whatever connection she claimed they shared, she had come to him for a reason. As night fell once more, Leo sat alone in the lab, staring at the crystal glowing faintly on his desk. Each use brought him closer to uncovering the truth, but it also left him feeling increasingly unsettled. Memories continued to surface, fragmented and disjointed, painting a picture he wasn't sure he wanted to see completed. But there was no turning back now. Somewhere within those flickering visions lay answers. Answers that might change everything he thought he knew about himself, his world, and the universe beyond. Leo spent the next few days consumed by a mix of fascination and dread. The crystal had become both his obsession and his burden, revealing fragments of memories that felt increasingly alien with each use. His mind was a battlefield between logic and emotion. On one side, his scientific training screamed at him to analyze everything methodically. On the other, an instinctive part of him whispered that some truths were better left untouched. Yet, despite the warnings echoing in his thoughts, he couldn't stop himself from delving deeper. By now, Mia had grown suspicious of Leo's erratic behavior. She noticed how often he retreated into the lab alone, shutting off the lights and locking the door behind him. When she asked about it, he brushed her off with vague excuses about needing uninterrupted focus for his research. But Mia wasn't easily fooled. Late one night, as she passed by his office, she caught a glimpse of something unusual through the frosted glass window, a faint glow emanating from within. Her curiosity got the better of her, and she knocked softly. "Leo," she called out, "are you still in there?" There was a pause before the door slid open, revealing Leo standing in the dim light. His face looked pale, almost gaunt, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. On the desk behind him lay the crystal, pulsing rhythmically like a living thing. Maya stepped inside cautiously, her gaze fixed on the object. "What is that?" she asked, her voice tinged with both awe and unease. "It's complicated," Leo replied, running a hand through his disheveled hair. He hesitated, then added, "It's not safe." Mia frowned. "Not safe? What do you mean? Is it dangerous?" Leo sighed heavily, sinking into his chair. For a moment, he debated whether to tell her everything. Trust didn't come easily to him, especially when it came to matters this strange. But Mia wasn't just his assistant. She was also one of the few people who truly understood his work. If anyone could help make sense of this, it was her. Finally, he began explaining what had happened. The mysterious visitor, the implanted memories, the classified documents hinting at extraterrestrial experiments. As he spoke, Maya listened intently, her expression shifting from skepticism to concern. "You're saying this. Alara isn't human?" she asked when he finished. "I don't know what she is," Leo admitted, "but I'm starting to think she wasn't lying about us being classmates, or at least about me knowing her somehow. Those symbols she showed me in the memories, they match patterns I've been finding in the crystal's data, and they're way beyond anything humans are capable of creating." Mia crossed her arms, thinking hard. If she's not human, then why would she give you this crystal? What does she want from you? "That's the question, isn't it?" Leo said grimly. "Every time I use it, I get closer to understanding. But it feels like I'm losing pieces of myself in the process. These memories aren't mine. Someone, or something, put them there." Determined to uncover more, Leo decided to take another risk. That evening, he activated the crystal once again, bracing himself for whatever visions awaited him. This time, the experience was even more vivid than before. Instead of fragmented scenes, he found himself fully immersed in a memory so sharp it felt indistinguishable from reality. He stood in a vast underground chamber illuminated by glowing glyphs etched into the walls. The air hummed with energy, and the ground beneath his feet vibrated faintly. In the center of the room stood Alara, or rather, a younger version of her. She wore a simple white robe, and her skin shimmered faintly, as though lit from within. Around her gathered a group of figures clad in flowing garments, their faces obscured by hoods. They spoke in low tones, their language melodic yet incomprehensible. Alara turned toward him, or at least it seemed like she did, and held up her hands, palms facing outward. Between them hovered a swirling orb of light, pulsing with colors that shifted too quickly for his eyes to follow. One of the hooded figures gestured sharply, and the orb expanded, filling the chamber with blinding radiance. As the light faded, Leo realized the scene had changed. Now he saw Earth, not the blue-green planet he knew, but a barren wasteland littered with ruins. The sky above churned with storm clouds, and distant flashes of lightning illuminated the desolation below. Alara's voice echoed in his mind, soft yet urgent. "This is what happens when knowledge falls into the wrong hands," she said. "We tried to warn your kind, but you weren't ready." Not then. The vision ended abruptly, leaving Leo gasping for breath. He stumbled backward, nearly knocking over his chair. Sweat dripped down his forehead, and his heart raced as if he'd just run a marathon. Whatever he'd witnessed, it wasn't just a memory. It was a warning. Over the following days, Leo pored over the information he gleaned from the crystal, cross-referencing it with historical records and scientific theories. Slowly, a horrifying picture began to emerge. The symbols Alara drew weren't random doodles or abstract art. They were equations describing advanced physics concepts, including methods for manipulating space-time and energy fields. Some of the formulas hinted at the creation of wormholes, while others suggested technology capable of altering matter at a fundamental level. But the most disturbing revelation came when Leo discovered references to a species known as the Luminary. According to fragmented texts buried deep within classified databases, the Luminary were an ancient civilization rumored to have visited Earth thousands of years ago. Their motives remained unclear, but legends described them as benevolent beings who shared fragments of their knowledge with humanity. However, these encounters ended abruptly after humans misused the information, leading to catastrophic consequences. Piecing together the clues, Leo realized the truth. Alara wasn't just a classmate from high school. She was one of the Luminary. Somehow, she had embedded herself among humans, perhaps as part of a covert mission to monitor their progress. The crystal was a key, designed to unlock hidden fragments of her people's teachings, stored within his artificially altered memories. But why had she chosen him specifically? And what role was he meant to play in all of this? His growing obsession with the crystal didn't go unnoticed. Colony officials began questioning his erratic behavior, and rumors spread among the staff about late-night experiments and unexplained noises coming from the lab. Leo knew it was only a matter of time before someone intervened. Desperate to protect the crystal and the secrets it contained, he confided in Mia, asking for her help in keeping it hidden. "We need to figure out what she wants," Mia urged, "but we can't do it alone." "You're pushing yourself too hard, Leo. At this rate, you'll burn out, or worse." Leo nodded reluctantly, knowing she was right. Using the crystal was taking a toll on him, both physically and mentally. Each activation brought clearer visions, but also heightened paranoia and fatigue. He started seeing things even when the crystal wasn't active. Shadows moving where there shouldn't be any, whispers in empty corridors, fleeting glimpses of Alara watching him from afar. One night, as he sat staring at the crystal, its gentle hum resonating through the silence, Leo made a decision. He couldn't keep running from the truth anymore. Whether Alara returned or not, he needed answers, and he was willing to pay whatever price necessary to get them. With trembling hands, he picked up the crystal and whispered, "Show me the rest." The hum of the crystal grew deafening, resonating through every fiber of Leo's being. The lab around him dissolved into a kaleidoscope of light and sound, pulling him into another vision. This time, however, it wasn't just fragments or fleeting glimpses. It was an immersive journey that felt more real than anything he'd experienced before. He stood in what appeared to be an ancient library carved out of living stone, its walls lined with shelves that stretched endlessly upward. Each shelf held glowing orbs instead of books, their surfaces rippling like liquid starlight. Alara stood at the center of the room, her shimmering form unmistakable even amidst the ethereal surroundings. She turned to face him, her eyes filled with both sadness and resolve. "You've come farther than I expected," she said softly. Her voice carried no malice, only a quiet urgency that sent chills down Leo's spine. "Why are you doing this?" Leo asked, his tone laced with frustration and fear. "What do you want from me?" Alara hesitated, as though weighing her words carefully. "My people, the Luminary, once shared our knowledge with humanity. It was meant to guide you, to help you grow. But your species, you weren't ready. You'd use what we gave you for destruction, not creation." Leo frowned. What are you talking about? When did this happen? Why don't we remember any of it? She gestured toward one of the glowing orbs on the nearest shelf. As she touched it, images spilled forth, scenes of ancient civilizations wielding technology far beyond their understanding. Cities rose and fell in flashes, their skies marred by explosions and smoke. People screamed as the ground cracked beneath their feet, swallowed whole by unnatural forces unleashed by their own hands. These memories were erased, Aluret explained, not by us, but by those who sought to protect humanity from itself. They believed forgetting would give you a chance to start over, to evolve without the burden of past mistakes. But now, she paused, her gaze piercing. Now the balance is shifting again. Fragments of our knowledge have resurfaced, scattered across time and space. If left unchecked, they could lead to the same catastrophe. Leo shook his head, struggling to process everything. So you're saying I'm some kind of vessel? That you implanted these memories in me because you think I can fix things? In part, Aluret admitted. Your mind is uniquely suited to hold these fragments. You've always been curious, driven to seek answers others ignore. But there's more to it than that. She stepped closer, her presence radiating warmth despite the gravity of her words. When we first met, in your high school, I chose you because you showed potential. Not just intellectual potential, but emotional strength. The ability to care deeply, even when it hurts. Leo clenched his fists, feeling overwhelmed. That doesn't answer my question. What exactly am I supposed to do? Aluret pointed to the crystal still clutched tightly in his hand. This is a map, a guide to retrieving the remaining fragments. Together, they form a key capable of restoring equilibrium. But unlocking them requires accessing neural pathways that may harm you permanently. Every step you take will test your limits, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Before Leo could respond, the vision shifted again. Now he found himself standing in a desolate wasteland under a blood-red sky. Towers of blackened metal jutted out of the cracked earth like broken teeth, remnants of a civilization long gone. In the distance loomed a massive structure resembling a monolith, its surface covered in pulsating glyphs identical to those in the library. Aluret stood beside him once more, her expression grim. That's where we need to go, she said, pointing toward the monolith. It's a beacon, a dormant device designed to stabilize the flow of knowledge between dimensions. Activating it will seal away the fragments, preventing them from falling into the wrong hands. But beware, the beacon draws energy from the surrounding area. Once activated, it will attract entities that feed on such power. What kind of entities? Leo asked, dread pooling in his stomach. Aluret didn't answer directly. Instead, the scene shifted yet again, showing shadowy figures writhing in the darkness. Their forms were indistinct, constantly shifting and merging, but their presence exuded malice so potent it made Leo's skin crawl. These weren't mere predators. They were hunters, drawn to chaos and destruction. When the vision faded, Leo found himself back in the lab, gasping for breath. His body trembled, and sweat soaked his shirt. The crystal lay silent on the desk, its glow dimmer than before, as if drained by the experience. For several minutes he simply sat there, trying to steady his racing heart. Mia entered the room moments later. Concern etched across her face. "Leo, what happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." He shook his head, unsure how much to share. Part of him wanted to tell her everything, to ask for her help, but another part feared dragging her deeper into danger. Finally, he settled on a compromise. "I saw something," he said quietly. "Something big. Bigger than anything we've dealt with before." Mia pulled up a chair and sat beside him. "Whatever it is, you're not facing it alone. We'll figure it out together." Her words offered a sliver of comfort, but Leo knew the road ahead would be anything but easy. The visions had given him clarity, yes, but also a heavy sense of responsibility. Retrieving the remaining fragments wouldn't just require navigating treacherous landscapes. It would force him to confront parts of himself he'd rather leave buried. Over the next few days, Leo and Mia worked tirelessly to decipher the crystal's map. Using advanced algorithms and cross-referencing data from the colony's archives, they identified the location of the beacon, a hidden chamber deep beneath Nova Terra's surface. According to geological scans, the region was unstable, riddled with seismic activity and toxic gases. Venturing there would be risky, but delaying wasn't an option either. The longer the fragments remained scattered, the greater the risk of someone, or something, finding them first. As preparations began, Leo couldn't shake the feeling that Elara was watching him. Sometimes, he caught glimpses of her reflection in the corner of his eye or heard her voice whispering faintly in his mind. Was she guiding him or manipulating him? He couldn't be sure. All he knew was that the answers lay ahead, and so did the greatest challenge of his life. On the eve of their departure, Leo sat alone in the lab, staring at the crystal. Its gentle hum seemed almost soothing now, a reminder of the connection he shared with Elara and the weight of the task ahead. Whatever awaited him in the depths of Nova Terra, he vowed to see it through. For better or worse, the fate of two species rested in his hands. The journey to the hidden chamber beneath Nova Terra was fraught with tension and uncertainty. Leo, Mia, and a small team of trusted colleagues boarded an all-terrain rover designed for navigating the colony's harsh terrain. The vehicle rumbled across rocky plains and jagged cliffs, its headlights cutting through thick clouds of metallic dust stirred up by the wind. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy, each passenger lost in their own thoughts as they approached the coordinates marked on the crystal's map. Leo sat stiffly in the front seat, clutching the crystal tightly in one hand while studying the holographic projections it emitted onto the dashboard. The glowing glyphs pulsed faintly, guiding them toward their destination like a beacon in the darkness. Despite his outward focus, his mind churned with doubts and fears. What if Elara had missiled him? What if this mission was nothing more than a trap? Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of shadowy figures writhing in the void, images from the visions that haunted his dreams. He couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister awaited them below. Mia noticed his unease and leaned closer, speaking softly so only he could hear. "You okay?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. "You've been quiet ever since we left." Leo forced a smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Just thinking," he replied, "about what happens next." Mia nodded knowingly. "We'll get through this. Whatever's down there, we're ready." Her words were meant to reassure him, but Leo knew better. They weren't ready, not truly. None of them understood the full scope of what they were walking into. Still, he appreciated her optimism. If nothing else, it reminded him why he brought her along. Her unwavering support grounded him when everything else felt like it was slipping away. After hours of travel, the rover finally came to a stop near the edge of a deep ravine. According to the scans, the entrance to the hidden chamber lay somewhere within the canyon walls, concealed by layers of rock and sediment. Armed with portable drills and scanning equipment, the team disembarked and began their descent. The air grew colder and thinner the deeper they went, forcing them to rely on oxygen masks to breathe. As they worked to uncover the entrance, strange occurrences began plaguing the group. Tools malfunctioned without explanation, and eerie whispers echoed through the cavern, though no one could pinpoint their source. At one point, Leo swore he saw movement out of the corner of his eye, a flicker of light or shadow, but when he turned to look, there was nothing there. His heart raced, and he tightened his grip on the crystal, drawing strength from its steady hum. Finally, after hours of painstaking effort, they broke through to a narrow passageway leading underground. The walls glowed faintly with bioluminescent moss, casting an otherworldly light over the group. As they ventured deeper, the air became charged with energy, making the hairs on their arms stand on end. The crystal reacted strongly to their surroundings, its pulse growing faster and brighter with each step forward. Suddenly, The passage opened into a vast cavern unlike anything any of them had ever seen. Towering pillars carved from crystalline stone stretched upward, disappearing into the darkness above. Between them floated orbs of light similar to those in the library from Leo's vision, each containing fragments of knowledge waiting to be retrieved. At the center of the chamber stood the monolith, the beacon Alara had described. Its surface shimmered with intricate patterns that shifted constantly, as if alive. "This is it," Leo murmured, awestruck by the sight before him. But his moment of wonder was short-lived. A low rumble reverberated through the cavern, followed by a series of sharp cracks as fissures spread across the floor. From the cracks emerged tendrils of shadow, twisting and writhing like living things. The entities Alara had warned about had arrived. Panic rippled through the group as the tendrils lashed out, seeking warmth and life. One of the team members screamed as a tendril wrapped around his leg, pulling him toward the abyss. Leo acted quickly, grabbing a plasma torch and severing the connection just in time. "We need to move," Mia shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Activate the beacon now." Leo hesitated, torn between fear and duty. Activating the beacon required interfacing directly with it, a process Alara had warned would come at great personal cost. Yet, standing amidst the swirling shadows and knowing the alternative was far worse, he realized he had no choice. Turning to Mia, he handed her the crystal. "Hold on to this," he said firmly. "If I don't make it, take it back to the lab. Don't let anyone else find it." Before she could protest, he stepped forward, placing his hands on the monolith's surface. Instantly, a surge of energy coursed through him, overwhelming his senses. Visions flooded his mind. Flashes of civilizations rising and falling, stars being born and dying, endless cycles of creation and destruction. Pain seared through his body as the beacon absorbed fragments of knowledge stored within his memories, using them to stabilize itself. Through the haze of agony, Leo heard Alara's voice echoing in his mind. "You're stronger than you know," she whispered. "Trust yourself." Summoning every ounce of willpower, Leo pushed past the pain, focusing on completing the activation sequence. Slowly, the monolith began to glow brighter, its pulsations syncing with the rhythm of his heartbeat. The shadowy tendrils recoiled, retreating into the fissures as the beacon's energy overwhelmed them. With a final burst of light, the cavern fell silent. Exhausted and battered, Leo collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. The others rushed to his side, helping him to his feet. Though weakened, he managed a faint smile. "It's done," he croaked. "The fragments are sealed." But even as relief washed over the group, Leo couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. The beacon may have stabilized the flow of knowledge, but the entities weren't destroyed. They were merely driven back. Somewhere, deep within the void, they waited, biding their time until another opportunity arose. And then there was Alara. She hadn't appeared during the ordeal, leaving Leo to wonder whether she'd abandoned him or sacrificed herself to ensure his success. As they made their way back to the surface, Leo clung to the hope that she would return someday. Until then, he vowed to remain vigilant, knowing the fight was far from over. Back at the colony, life resumed its usual rhythm, oblivious to the dangers lurking beneath the surface. But for Leo, the experience had changed everything. He carried the weight of two species' futures on his shoulders, aware that trust was a luxury he could no longer afford. Whatever challenges lay ahead, one thing was certain: humanity wasn't alone in the universe, and neither was he. The journey back to the surface was silent, each member of the team processing the harrowing events in their own way. Leo leaned heavily against the wall of the rover, his body racked with exhaustion and pain. The activation of the beacon had drained him, physically, mentally, and emotionally. His hands trembled as he stared at them, still tingling from the surge of energy that had coursed through his veins. He could feel remnants of the visions flickering in his mind, fragments of knowledge too vast for any human mind to fully comprehend. It was overwhelming, like trying to hold an ocean in a cup. Mia sat beside him, her expression unreadable but her eyes filled with concern. She reached out hesitantly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did it," she said softly. "Whatever happens next, we couldn't have done it without you." Leo nodded weakly, though he didn't feel victorious. The beacon's activation had sealed away the scattered fragments of luminary knowledge, yes, but at what cost? He had glimpsed truths about existence itself during those moments of connection, truths that now lingered just beyond his grasp, haunting him like half-remembered dreams. Worse still, he couldn't shake the feeling that they hadn't truly solved the problem. They had merely delayed it. As the rover climbed higher, leaving the ravine behind, Leo's thoughts turned to Alara. She had guided him this far, offering cryptic warnings and fleeting glimpses of her intentions. But where was she now? Had she been watching over him during the ordeal? Or had she sacrificed herself to ensure the mission's success? Her absence weighed heavily on him, a void he couldn't quite fill. When they finally returned to the lab, Leo immediately set to work analyzing the crystal once more. Despite the beacon's activation, it still pulsed faintly, emitting a soft hum that resonated deep within him. Its glow had dimmed significantly, almost as if it were mourning something or someone. Placing it on the scanning platform, Leo activated the machine, hoping to uncover answers hidden within its core. To his surprise, new data began appearing on the monitors, not mathematical formulas or star charts this time, but messages written in plain language. They weren't addressed to him directly, but rather seemed intended for anyone who might find them someday. One message stood out. "If you are reading this, then the balance has been restored. For now, the fragments of our knowledge have been secured, but the entities remain. They feed on chaos and will return when the opportunity arises. Guard this truth carefully, for ignorance is both a curse and a shield." Leo read the words aloud, his voice trembling slightly. Maya listened intently, her brow furrowing as she processed their meaning. "What does it mean?" she asked. "Are we safe?" Leo shook his head slowly. "Not exactly. The beacon bought us time, but these entities, they're still out there, waiting." Mia crossed her arms, her frustration evident. "So what do we do now? Keep running? Hiding?" "I don't know," Leo admitted, "but I think the crystal holds one last piece of the puzzle, something we haven't accessed yet." With renewed determination, Leo interfaced with the crystal again, delving deeper into its data than ever before. This time, the experience wasn't visual, it was auditory. Voices echoed in his mind, overlapping and intertwining until they formed a single coherent message. It was Alara's voice, clearer and stronger than he'd heard it in days. "You've done well, Leo," she said, her tone warm yet tinged with sadness. "But your journey isn't over. The beacon stabilized the flow of knowledge, but the key to ensuring its safety lies within you. You carry fragments of my people's teachings embedded in your memories. To complete the process, you must unlock them fully." "How?" Leo whispered, unsure whether he was speaking aloud or only in his mind. "Return to the library," Alara instructed. "Not the physical place, but the memory of it. The space where we first met. There you'll find the final fragment needed to seal the breach permanently." The vision faded, leaving Leo breathless. He opened his eyes to find Mia staring at him, her concern palpable. "What happened?" she asked. "She spoke to me," Leo replied. "Alara. She told me how to finish this." Mia frowned, clearly skeptical. "Finish what? What's left to do?" Leo explained as best he could, describing the library from his earlier vision and the task ahead. Though hesitant, Mia agreed to help him prepare. Together, they gathered equipment and supplies, knowing they would need to isolate Leo during the final phase. Whatever lay within the library memory, accessing it would require complete focus and potentially great risk. That night, Leo retired to the lab alone, locking the door behind him. He placed the crystal on the desk and sat cross-legged on the floor, taking slow, deliberate breaths to calm his racing heart. When he felt ready, he picked up the crystal and held it close to his chest, allowing its hum to synchronize with his breathing. Closing his eyes, he whispered, "Take me back." The world dissolved around him once more, pulling him into the memory of the ancient library. The glowing orbs lined the shelves endlessly, casting a serene light over the chamber. Alara stood at the center, her ethereal form shimmering softly. She smiled when she saw him, her expression bittersweet. "You came," she said simply. "I didn't have much choice," Leo replied, attempting to mask his unease with humor. "What do I need to do?" Alara gestured toward one of the orbs floating nearby. Unlike the others, this one pulsed erratically, its light flickering as if struggling to stay alight. "This contains the final fragment," she explained. "Touch it, and it will merge with your consciousness. But be warned, the process will test everything you are. Your fears, your doubts, your regrets. They will all rise to the surface." Leo swallowed hard, his resolve wavering. "And if I fail?" Alara's gaze softened. "Then the breach remains vulnerable, and the cycle begins anew. But I believe in you, Leo. You've carried this burden longer than you realize. Now it's time to let go." Summoning every ounce of courage, Leo stepped forward and reached out, his fingers brushing against the orb's surface. Instantly, a flood of sensations overwhelmed him. Pain, joy, despair, hope, all crashing together in a torrent of emotion. Visions assaulted his mind, showing him moments from his past he had long buried. Arguments with his parents, friendships lost to time, failures he had tried desperately to forget. Each memory tore at him, forcing him to confront the parts of himself he had avoided for years. Through the chaos, Alara's voice guided him, steady and unwavering. "Face them," she urged. "Accept them. Only then can you move forward." Tears streamed down Leo's face as he relived each moment, feeling the weight of every decision, every regret. But slowly the storm began to subside. The memories ceased to hurt. Instead, they became lessons, reminders of his humanity. With a final burst of clarity, the orb merged completely with him, leaving him standing in silence amidst the glowing library. When Leo opened his eyes again, he was back in the lab. The crystal lay dark and lifeless on the desk, its purpose fulfilled. For the first time in weeks, he felt lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Mia rushed in moments later, alarmed by his sudden awakening. "Leo," she exclaimed, "are you okay?" He nodded, managing a genuine smile. "I'm fine. It's done." Though neither of them knew exactly what the future held, one thing was certain. Whatever challenges awaited, they would face them together. And somewhere, in the depths of space-time, Alara watched silently, her mission complete, for now. The days that followed were a blur for Leo. Exhaustion clung to him like a second skin, but so did an unfamiliar sense of peace. The crystal, the source of so much mystery and turmoil, now lay inert on his desk, its glow extinguished forever. It was as if the weight it carried had finally been released, leaving behind only silence. Yet, despite the calm, Leo couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental within him had changed. He wasn't the same man who had first held the crystal weeks ago. He doubted he ever would be again. Maya stayed by his side during those early days, ensuring he ate, slept, and didn't overwork himself. She noticed subtle differences in him, how his eyes seemed sharper, his movements more deliberate. There was a quiet confidence about him now, a steadiness that hadn't been there before. When she asked what he remembered from the final merging with the orb, Leo simply smiled and said, "Everything and nothing." He didn't elaborate further, and Mia didn't press him. Some truths, she realized, weren't meant to be shared. Word of their expedition spread quickly through the colony, though not all of it was accurate. Rumors swirled about strange lights seen near the ravine, mysterious disappearances, and even whispers of alien contact. The authorities questioned Leo repeatedly, demanding explanations for the seismic activity recorded in the area. But Leo remained tight-lipped, deflecting their inquiries with vague responses about geological anomalies and faulty equipment. Without concrete evidence, they eventually dropped the matter, chalking it up to another unexplained event on Novaterra's already bizarre landscape. Still, Leo knew better than to let his guard down. He destroyed every trace of data related to the crystal and the beacon, erasing files from the lab's servers and disposing of physical notes in a secure incinerator. Only one thing remained untouched: the memories embedded deep within his mind. They weren't just fragments anymore. They were part of him, woven into the fabric of his consciousness. Sometimes, when he closed his eyes, he could still see glimpses of starry skies, ancient civilizations, and Elara's luminous smile. But these visions no longer frightened him. Instead, they felt like echoes of a promise kept. Weeks turned into months, and life on Novaterra settled back into its usual rhythm. Leo resumed his work at the research lab, though his focus shifted subtly. Where once he had pursued knowledge purely for discovery's sake, he now approached it with caution, mindful of the responsibilities that came with wielding such power. His colleagues noticed the change but attributed it to burnout or stress. Only Mia understood the truth, or at least part of it. One evening, as the twin moons cast their familiar blue glow over the horizon, Leo found himself standing outside the lab, staring up at the stars. The air was crisp, carrying the faint metallic tang of Novaterra's atmosphere. He thought about Earth, about the high school he barely remembered, and about the girl who had claimed they were classmates. Did she exist somewhere out there, watching over humanity? Or had she moved on, her mission complete? "Do you remember me now?" Elara's voice whispered softly, almost too faint to hear. Leo froze, his heart skipping a beat. Slowly, he turned around, half expecting to see her shimmering form standing behind him. But the space was empty, save for the wind rustling through the dry grass. For a moment, he wondered if he imagined her voice, if fatigue and nostalgia had conjured it out of thin air. Then he smiled, realizing it didn't matter. Whether real or imagined, her words carried meaning. "I remember," he murmured aloud, addressing the night sky. "And I'll never forget." Back at the colony, life continued as usual. Scientists debated theories, engineers tinkered with machines, and settlers went about their daily routines, oblivious to the cosmic forces that lurked just beyond their understanding. To them, the universe was vast and indifferent, a place where humanity eked out a fragile existence amidst countless dangers. But Leo knew better. He had seen the threads connecting everything, the delicate balance holding existence together. And while most people lived unaware of the shadows lurking in the void, Leo carried the knowledge silently, like a sentinel guarding a secret too dangerous to share. Months later, reports began filtering in from distant colonies about unusual phenomena. Strange signals intercepted in deep space, sightings of shadowy figures moving between stars, and whispers of civilizations older than time itself. Each report sent shivers down Leo's spine, reminding him of the entities Elara had warned about. They weren't gone. They were merely waiting, biding their time until the cycle began anew. But for now, the breach was sealed, and the fragments of luminary knowledge remained safe. Humanity had been given another chance, a reprieve earned through sacrifice and courage. Leo hoped they would use it wisely this time. As the years passed, Leo became something of a legend among his peers. Tales of his exploits spread far beyond Novaterra, inspiring awe and curiosity in equal measure. Some called him reckless, others brilliant, but none doubted his dedication to protecting the fragile balance of the universe. Even Mia, who had witnessed the events firsthand, marveled at how much he had grown since that fateful night the crystal arrived. And yet, despite his newfound fame, Leo remained humble. He avoided the spotlight whenever possible, preferring instead to work quietly in the background, mentoring younger scientists and sharing lessons learned the hard way. One day, as he stood before a group of eager students, explaining the importance of ethical responsibility in scientific pursuits. He caught sight of a shimmer in the corner of the room. Turning slightly, he saw her, Alara, her form translucent but unmistakable, smiling gently at him. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and Leo felt a surge of gratitude wash over him. Whatever doubts or fears he had once harbored melted away, replaced by a profound sense of purpose. She nodded once, then vanished as suddenly as she had appeared. When the lecture ended, several students lingered to ask questions. One of them, a young woman with bright, curious eyes, hesitated before speaking. "Dr. Hartman," she began, "do you believe we're alone in the universe?" Leo paused, considering the question carefully. Finally, he smiled. "No," he said simply, "we're not alone. But whether we're ready for what's out there, well, that's up to us." With that, he gathered his notes and left the room, stepping out into the sunlight. Somewhere above him, the stars twinkled faintly, their light traveling unimaginable distances to reach him. Among them, he knew, were beings far greater than himself, watchful, patient, and wise. And somewhere, in the vast expanse of space-time, Alara waited, ready to guide humanity should the need arise once more.